Hi, this is Can You See My Screen, a podcast dedicated to running better workshops, training and meetings online. I'm Michael Forrest and I do a lot of video production, live streaming and software development.
I'm Ivanka Magic. I do user research. I do a lot of talking to people, workshops, courses and presentations offline and online. And with so many of us having to work more online, we think that we can help make this easier and better.
Because we has got backgrounds doing this sort of thing for ages, talking like that on professional podcast. We are in different countries as well as we talk about this, so if there's any little delays, we record it live. It's just we're very far apart. That's the magic of this. It's recorded over the internet. Right, today we're going to talk about, well, what's the title? I'll just read the title. Consumer tools are often better than enterprise tools, but can we use them at work? Can we use them at work? Like, how do we can we negotiate that IT challenge? And at the start of the pandemic, things got a lot looser, didn't they? With what you're allowed to use at work. And then they sort of got, slowly the screws got tied up again and things got a lot more restrictive. And I need to put that music on a loop. So we're gonna sort of dig into that. Ivanka's got some good advice. The answer for me is yes, I can do whatever I want because I work for myself. If you don't let me use the tool I want, then I'm just not going to work for you. That's my policy.
It's an approach.
It's an approach. It doesn't work for everyone.
No, and it's not a new problem.
It's not a new problem.
No, it's just been, I think, exacerbated by the internet. So it used to be Google Docs and collaborating online, even in the office, and now that we're working further away, it's stretched out to video conferencing tools, meeting tools, all those kind of things. So chat, what do you chat on? How do you chat? How do you replicate casual conversations? All those like ways of communicating remotely.
The stakes have never been higher. Try to find out. Connected. Ivanka has her serious voice on. Michael has his not super serious voice on. But no, this is about value. This is about you, the listener. So where do we start? Like where do we start with this? Have you got a story? Perhaps
I've got many stories, perhaps that might help. I think. So one of the things we often talk about is like Zoom versus Teams. Let's just dig in. Let's name some brands.
Teams. Let's name it.
Zoom versus Teams, or Google Hangouts versus all of them. Google Hangouts seems to have fallen well out of favour.
I don't know what it is anymore. They kept rebranding it, renaming it, and now like Google Meet though, I tend to do a lot of things with just because you can make the Google Calendar automatically make the Google Meet, and that's how I run things. But often I will jump on a call and they won't have used it really, and like Zoom does seem to be the one that people want to use.
Yeah, Zoom is has definitely got some better features and is kinder to your processor, it seems, which are all considerations. I was recently on a thing where we used Zoom for the workshops, so the actual meetings, the breakout rooms, the everything, but all the meetings ahead of it, all with the organizers, were done on Microsoft internal. Well, yeah, I was part of the organizers, we all spoke amongst ourselves on Microsoft Teams. So the public facing paying.
There was a public facing side of it that was all done on Zoom.
Right. Zoom was people had to be signed up and everything. It wasn't it wasn't open to the world, but the wider participation was done through Zoom. And I'm not entirely sure. I don't know the logic. I don't know why we were subjected to Microsoft Teams. And there is a bit of this stuff where I think there is a familiarity problem. So if you're using Zoom for all your home meetings and your meetings with your friends, or you're using Google Hangouts, then you have to use a Teams thing, then you're going to have to learn it. And there is that factor which I think we shouldn't exclude. But I don't know what the logic is or how people make the decisions between the two.
Well, there's a lot of ways this works, and quality is measured in many ways. It's measured in familiarity, like what got there first, and often that's the Microsoft product. But sometimes like a more commercial user, startups essentially like Zoom are able to move a lot quicker and innovate in different ways to something, to an enterprise organization where they're kind of, they have their enterprise customers and they have to appeal to them in different ways. But people see the stuff that's being done in the private sector and say, well, why can't, not the private sector, but the commercial world, like the app store kind of thing, and they say, well, why can't I have that in my work thing? And that it really comes down to the person buying is not the person using it, or in enterprise generally. The person, so that will have been sold to. So the qualities that it is being sold on are going to be what appeals to a meeting full of people wearing suits and doing PowerPoint presentations, and won't necessarily line up with day-to-day, I'm trying to do this thing and it doesn't work properly and I'm going to send an email to the developer and, you know, vote with my wallet kind of thing, which is what happens in the App Store or somewhere like that. So the wallet is kind of held by the people that aren't necessarily using it all the time, or they've been sold the thing and they kind of go, oh well, it does all this and this, even if that actually makes no difference to the person on the ground, and actually maybe even causes those people problems, things like security accounts and you know, sort of like locking down access and things like that. I think
security and accounts and access are the root of most problems when it comes to decision making. Often because, so for example, if you're bought as an organization, you're bought into the Microsoft suite of products, then you've got all your network or your administrator levels, and I can't remember what it's called anymore. It's been such a long time since I've done any Microsoft admin stuff. But you know, that sort of like they've got the different levels of access, and you've got all that sorted, and we can just add this next new product to it, and we don't have to worry about it. We don't have
log
to worry
in with
about
your account. You don't have to make a new account.
No, and that's why, I mean, in a very small organization like you can default to Google because it's dead easy. It doesn't cost you anything. It's there. You can do your meets. But I think often so that's that account administration is one thing, and then that gets conflated with security. And so security, and I think far more organizations spend time in that sort of close everything and then open up as necessary, when actually you could flip that and go, right, let's open everything and close down what we need to close down, which would make communicating remotely and working together and collaborating potentially much more straightforward.
And I think, like, looking historically, it used to be a lot harder to even use a Google product in a company, and you know, so Microsoft was where everyone went to. Microsoft had it on lock, kind of thing, Active Directory, that kind of thing. That's what the IT department was used to, and people did courses and training and got certificates about their Microsoft admin things. And then people go, oh, but like with Google Docs I can real-time collaborate with other people. But to start off with, you had to create a Google account and you had to go outside the firewall or whatever it was. But Google did, as the years went on, like they sort of pulled on some grown-up business trousers and said, look, here's look now you can do all that stuff that's missing. But still, Zoom is probably still in that stage where they've been very focused on sort of general security, and they've had some data problems in the past. But actually, in terms of sort of creating all that checklist that the enterprise wants, that is going to be a while before they get to that. And meanwhile, Microsoft is able to sort of like build on what they've already built on that side, and sort of do maybe a superficially similar product, but they're not being put through the same grinder that something that's so widely used as Zoom has been. And it just, but yeah, so I've had, you know, I would tend to gravitate. I've worked for some big organisations. I started off in the public sector, working for sort of Newham Council and some other things like that. But it was a breath of fresh air to be able to move into somewhere where I could use my own computer and install my own things on my computer. That was a huge kind of private sector thing. But then the next thing is I go to startups and they are using Google, you know, the Google Office stuff. What do you call it? Like the Google infrastructure.
Yeah.
Google Suite. Yeah. G Suite, whatever it's called. And that was always a relief, but that wasn't there to start with, and it took a long time for Google. Now we think of Google as this enormous behemoth that is, but it wasn't always that.
There are still councils where you simply cannot get to Google Docs through the firewall. Like it's as though it doesn't exist. So it's like on a blacklisted list of sites, which, I of course, data privacy and data security is really important. Of course it is. When it is, but when it isn't, then it really is. I know that sounds really trite, perhaps. But, if I'm just asking somebody in my team whether they've done something, why can't I be running the conversation on Slack? Why can't I? Because it's not just not all data needs to be subject to huge levels of rigor and security. And the kind of risk assessments are done without, I think, proper consideration for what the data is.
Yeah.
So you and I have a chat. Who's actually gonna, like, that sort of, you wrote down earlier when we were talking that security by obscurity. There's loads of stuff on the internet. Why really? Of what use is this conversation to somebody, or like this document that you're sharing? It's like, be realistic.
You can move faster by asking for forgiveness instead of permission. But when there is a reputational risk to an organization of thousands of people, that's a lot scarier to the people in charge. That's a lot scarier to the IT department. That's a lot scarier to those people that are going to have to be forced to resign if some bit of data gets leaked that really shouldn't have got leaked. And so by kind of, but the irony, of course, is of locking things down so far that you can't even get to Google Docs is people start working around it. They'll get a USB stick, or they'll bring their own computer in, they'll copy a file over on a stick, and because they are so limited and the contrast between the quality of the tools is so high that too much security can actually be counterproductive, because it just makes people completely bypass it.
Totally. You hear of people then taking photographs of stuff and sending it via WhatsApp, and it's really the when you make it hard for people to work and have like full bandwidth conversations, which is what we're talking about, communicating in every way that they need to, as if they are together, sharing drawings, sharing sketches, video, audio, all of it, fast, slow, recorded, not blah, whatever. Once you start putting barriers up to that, people then try and solve the problems, and then it becomes people who don't really understand the risks of security. It's like this idea that faxing stuff is the safest way of sending data. So you still come across it a lot in social care and health, where the only way to get something sent to you is by fax, disregarding entirely the fact that the fax machine might be sitting in a public place, or people leave documents in the fax machine. It's not.
I mean, I suppose if anyone's phone tapping, they can easily. Get
you know what I mean? Like if anyone still does that, I suppose. But you know what I mean? It's like it's the workarounds, I think, and the workarounds then they've got enormous risk attached to them. I know. Started this off with a flippant, Zoom is better than Teams. And I don't really. I know I'm grossly unfamiliar with Teams, so I just have to put my Teams head on when I'm trying to use it, and then there's some things that are better within there, or easier to use than perhaps I give them credit for, but I think that but it's not. I don't think it's just about. It's not necessarily about that. It's how you bring in the new tools and the different tools. Like we had the conversation about Twitch last week. I mean, I can imagine suggesting Twitch in a corporate environment probably blow people's heads apart.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you would ever really do that in real life, but certainly something. But even like YouTube, wanting to do a live stream on YouTube might, and I'm sure Microsoft has something that they say can do a live stream, but I can guarantee that it is nothing like the experience of a Google live stream, and that's difficult because suddenly, I think it's hard when your expectations of the software sort of guide the content you're creating and what you want to do with it, and then you're sort of forced to switch to a different thing, and it just, people sort of think it's has the same, it has feature parity, or will basically do the same thing, and then you just find quite quickly that it's really not the case, and you have to completely tone down your expectations of it. And that can be hard when you've come up with a presentation, you've come up with a talk, to suddenly have to go, oh, I can't do all these things, I can't show this stuff I wanted to show because the resolution of this video conferencing software is so low that you can't read my slides, or like I can't play a video through it because it gets too choppy, or like, you know, those different kinds of so the sort of details of how it works are just as important as what the features are. But also, like, let's just, like, I think not forget that familiarity is also huge metric there as well. So if you're used to using something, even if it's very limited, that's fine, because you know what to expect, you can plan for that. But if you're expecting something that's been, if your expectations are set by some commercial tool that's entirely focused on user experience, and then you try and apply that same mindset to something sort of enterprisey, you can, that's where a lot of problems come from. But I thought, but can we you had a lot of thoughts on how we can talk to, how you can, I don't need to, but how people can talk to how people can talk to IT departments to navigate that privacy, that administration privileges conversation for different situations. Have you got some advice that you can give people?
I think the advice might be a strong word. If you're willing to go into battle for an app that you think has features that are worth it, which is possibly a very negative place to start from, I think anticipating the problems people have or the concerns they have is really important. Understanding that it's security they're worried about, and privacy. So, for example, running I've been caught up in conversations where people were obsessive about how passwords were going to get distributed for a particular system, but there were only 20 users on that system. I was like, we could literally go around to their house with a piece of paper and give it to them, because there's so few, and it's such a, that's about as secure as you can get. There you go, and burn the paper as you leave. But also there's this kind of, if you are having a conversation about something, of course, if it's in health or social care or something when deeply personal, vulnerable information is going to could potentially get out, and get out could just mean one wrong person seeing it. Doesn't necessarily mean to be leaked to the dark web. It's just like, we all have a right to absolute privacy when it comes to our health. Of course, you should take that very seriously. If you are running a team meeting about the design of your intranet, apart from perhaps some embarrassing conversations that people would rather not be seen, who's looking for it? What benefit? Why would they be stealing it? What for?
How long does it live? How long does it stay? Like, if it's a live video conversation, a team meeting that you do on something and then immediately delete it, or it never gets recorded, then what's the risk
it's
there?
kind of like, so somebody could die. You especially in the beginning of COVID, we had lots of stories about wrong-uns coming into people's Zoom conversations. But it's like, who's looking? What time of day? Like, where are they looking? Where are they going to find it? What understanding, having a real conversation about risk. And I don't know if sometimes I feel like but having these conversations as well, when you're talking about breaking down the risk, there are two sides of it. There's the breaking down the risk and truly understanding what the risks are, and then there's allowing the IT team to conflate, I don't want to learn about a new thing, with it's too risky.
Mm.
Because you're asking people to do more work and to learn something new that they don't want to do.
And this whole security argument is misused ubiquitously as well. I mean, we have Apple will use it in the right to repair conversation, for example. They'll say, "Oh, if we let people have the schematics to their phone, then there'll be a security risk." It's really not. So that argument is misused, and unfortunately, if you have someone in your IT department that just doesn't want to help, then you're not going to get much help. But on the other hand, I almost think that this. Instead of thinking it as that, it's easy to make rules that you always have to use this. You always have to use Microsoft this and that and the other, and you can't use anything else in this organization. That's what a rule looks like. But I think in reality, it can be case by case. This is good for this. This platform is good for this. So almost it's a good sign, your story from before, that they were able to use, maybe they, I don't know if they would have preferred to use Zoom for the other stuff, but maybe it was better to use Teams for the internal,
there might be
the corporate conversations, and just having permission and having some slightly more nuanced approach to that security is the first step. Because as soon as you get someone that just wants to put these hard rules down, that's when things start to break, and really it causes problems because people will start pushing up against the edge of them instead of just because they're just trying to get their job done.
I think but what you're saying, I agree with, and I hope I'm not going to restate what you're saying, but in my own words. But it comes out, it's the moment of buying, and what rules you're buying by are interesting, and they lead to some really poor choices because the rules are set exactly as you're saying, around we use this suite instead of we use things that have the ability to, I don't know, close down access to XYZ, or we want the data any data stored to be stored within the or on servers within the UK. We need data to always be covered under EU law. We need whatever it is. So if you're specific about the law and the rule and not the tool, people have much more freedom to make decisions and evolve their tool set. Evolve their tool set as they get new needs arise. And when there's a new need about recording conversations and storing them, add a new rule that's about stored video, not about whether it's Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google or anyone else. And I think that is the most helpful, because so much procurement in enterprise and public sector, but also enterprise in general, seems to me to be locked to the wrong to the tool, the brand, not the function.
It's tricky in these situations because money is this, or we've paid for this, so use it. We haven't paid for that, and it's important to remember that a lot of these commercial tools are free because they want your data. That's their business model. So Google's business model is your data. Certainly if you wouldn't use YouTube, Facebook Live, anything like that, their whole business is getting as much of your data and doing as much as they can with it. So it's very understandable that companies would not want to do that. But some situations that data is not that precious, and what have you really got to lose? But it really comes, I think, this is interesting how this does play into our other podcast. It's the larger the organization, the more getting those changes becomes political activism more than right. It's we need a new way of approving software. We need a new, more ad hoc thing. I'm the youngest of 7 children, and there's this mentality where if I get a bike, everyone else has to get a bike for their birthday as well, kind of thing. So you're never just buying one bike, you're buying 7 bikes. In an enterprise, if you can maybe get out of the habit of thinking, right, if I buy one Zoom Pro license or whatever they've got, I've got to buy 30,000 of them. Maybe that's a metric, a way of having the conversation. But without obviously showing someone special treatment. But it is nice that when you work at a company, you're like, well, I've got Adobe, I've got all the Adobe products. But not everyone can have that. But yeah, so it is political, and you know, obviously that's a much larger conversation. But I guess like you got to find someone that you can have a good faith conversation with that has the power, the authority to make those decisions.
I think as well, one of the things that we have, going back to the workarounds and everything, it's like have trust. You know, having trust that people are trying to find the best tool for their work, not just mucking about with a new thing. It's like, I've heard this is a good, you know, I've heard it would be that there are loads of, Twitch has got this really interesting feature that would let us do X. I'm picking on Twitch because I still haven't found an enterprise application for it.
But, you know, out of place in this conversation.
I'm just trying to keep it like, you know,
broad.
A broad church.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like if you've got a reason to be, if I can put forward a case for why I'm saying that this tool better serves my purposes, then, you know, extend me the courtesy of evaluating it under a reasonable framework, rather than Twitch, that must be nonsense, can't possibly even look at it. So I think that's
it's like, what is introduce a new democracy? We want first past the post instead of, you know, like whatever. We don't want that, do we? Another strategy, I will say, as a sort of like humorous and not to really be taken seriously suggestion, is when I was in the public sector, I eventually just like looked over the shoulder of the IT person and saw what the password was, and I just did that, and that they used the same password for everything, every computer admin password. But and that's one ethical wise, that's one thing on a, like, for an admin password, but for like a credit card, maybe not cool, you know. But yeah, that's if you're desperate.
Oh dear. See, that's like the worst workaround I've ever heard. That's like, my God. See, that's what happens if you don't treat people with it.
Don't let people do anything. If you don't let them work, they just find a way. Okay, let's.
God.
I'm trying to remember what button. You're so shocked by that.
I really am.
I actually eventually was given the password because I was running some kiosks, so I got it sooner or later. But like, I've just got so sick of having to wait a day for someone to install.
Some
PowerPoint.
Yeah, I know.
Like, it was crazy. But yeah, that's we would love to hear from our audience about these things and some questions. Like, as this podcast goes on, it will get more specific and hopefully a little bit more question and answer focused with you people listening, and we can do something a bit more directly useful and something more actionable. But I would say, like, you know, it all comes down to the size of the organisation, the politics, and unfortunately, the larger the organisation, the more you have to sort of assemble lobbyists in order to be able to get things to be improved. Yeah. But, you know, it's doable, isn't it? So there we go.
It is.
I'm going to press a button, but I'm not quite sure. How do we do the end of this podcast? I think we just say thanks for listening. If you like it, come to canyousseemyscreenpodcast.com, and we'd love to hear from you. You can tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll that'll feed back into future episodes. We'll email you about new episodes. I think we need like a juicier lead magnet, a juicier reason for people to come. But, you know, as time goes on, hopefully we'll have more resources on there that people can download for free and use. Maybe we can do a sort of a flow chart of how to get to use Zoom at work. I don't know.
Maybe using Zoom isn't a problem for people. Whatever it is, we are willing to and able to put some work into making this podcast useful. Exactly. Please send us questions to help us focus our efforts, and we will do our best.
All right,
to help you. There you go. How about that?
We really will, in good faith, do it. And look, I haven't got a real job anyway, so it's fine. I can just work on your stuff. It's all good. All right. Take care. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye.